Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thanks so much for joining me here today. We're taking a look here at Ecash, which is a request from one of my patrons, Patricia. Thank you very much, Patricia, for requesting that I cover this here. You always bring up some really interesting, cool scenarios. So I really do appreciate your insight and your request because obviously I get a chance to cover a coin I haven't yet. So this is exciting times for me, of course. I really enjoy doing this. If you're new to the channel, obviously not a financial advisor. I just have years of trading experience. My goal is to help you become more of an effective trader, right? I love teaching, love helping other people become better at what they do. And trading, I know, takes a while. I've been in the industry for 15 years. It doesn't happen overnight, but I promise in due time you will get there. Practice makes perfect. Learn as much as you can from as many people as possible. If you'd like to learn more, I have a Patreon community, trading community, where I share all my trades with my members, and we just learn and grow together. Awesome experience. That's how I got to know Patricia. Thanks again. All right, so take a look here at Bitcoin 10-day, sorry, 1-day chart, not the 10-day. It looks like a 10 though. Anyways, taking a look here, of course, at the current support and resistance levels. We'll go ahead and move on from this here. Just like to preface, because any good trader looks at Bitcoin first, and just to basically summarize, we're looking at 53,800 as a support level, 56,000 as a major resistance. That's where this green channel comes from. I do this for my patrons just to kind of help drive in the point home here that it's a major. It has a lot of volume in this area. And if we look at this, the most amount of volume is right at about 54, 55,000, right in that range. So that's what's creating this strong support channel, because more people are buying, a lot of the whales are buying at this point, and they're not willing to sell any lower, right? They're trying to add to their position because they expect the price to go up, and we need to follow along with that, right? That's the concept of being a good trader, is to get on board with what the other bulls are doing. That being said, we've got a major resistance here at 57,500. Bear that in mind. It will likely break to the upside based on this pattern that we see here forming. It does appear to be somewhat of an ascending pattern. Again, and we saw this break to the upside previously as well, but it looks like it might do so again, because the more often you test a resistance, the more likely it is to break, okay? And we've seen 4 testings in a row, or at least today's the 4th day starting, so there's a good chance we should break to the upside and start, seeing 60,000 as the next major milestone for Bitcoin. I think within 1 week we should see 60,000. I think it's pretty realistic to get there likely this weekend. That's my guess, just based on the overall momentum here. So all in all, Bitcoin's looking good. I like it. So moving on to Ecash, let's go ahead and take a look here. And I had to do a little bit of research, wasn't a ton, but I looked at all the exchanges offered on TradingView, of course, that are provided here. And this one appeared to be the oldest one with Huobi. And what basically boils down to is introduced, if I'm not mistaken, July 19th. Correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to comment below. But July 19th was the ICO date, if I'm not mistaken, at least through this exchange. And what's interesting, though, is on the 3rd, September 3rd, that's when it was introduced to Binance. So keep that in mind. We've got a tremendous amount of volume here. We can probably see the amount of volume, yep, right there, kind of drove it up. In fact, it was actually getting a lot of volume beforehand. We don't see a tremendous amount of volume here. That's on this exchange. I'm sure if we look at Binance, we'll see a lot more. But generally speaking, there's a lot of volume that happens when a coin is introduced to a new exchange, especially when as large as Binance, right? So just keep that in mind. That drove the price up even further here, but it's actually helpful because it does appear to be kind of a continuation pennant pattern. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but that does kind of look like that. So let's go ahead and put this right here. Take a look here. And typically these break to the upside, okay? More often than not, you'll see it break to the upside. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but I would say in the near future, we might see that occur. In fact, it does look like it tried 2 days ago, but failed. And we'll find out on a shorter time frame why. It might be a pretty strong resistance there. It does look like there might be one at about 25,300, but we'll go ahead and get there soon. But just to quickly note here, let me pull this up here. Take a look at this here. Does that not look like a pennant continuation, a bullish variant? It does to me. I know it's not exactly the same shape, but they all come in different shapes and sizes. So that just tells me that we might see, just based on that pattern alone, we may see a break to the upside. I think it's more likely to break upwards than it is downwards. But again, keep in mind, the only thing contradictory here is the fact that we had an ICO here, or the coin was introduced to a different exchange at that time frame. So that drove it up again. So I think that we should see a continuation based on that sentiment. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at smaller time frames, so we can find any other support and resistance levels. We can see somewhat of a resistance here at about 26,175, so we'll go ahead and mark that. And by the way, I'm not putting all the zeros in front because it just gets confusing that way. I hope you don't mind. Take a look here though. One thing to note as well, RSI is under 50. Okay, so when RSI is under 50, that's not a great sign. It basically still implies that we have more of a bearish divergence overall, just based on the simple fact that it can't stay above. It tried to break above recently, but it got rejected. So just keep in mind 50 is oftentimes a strong support and resistance level on the RSI. So that is essentially telling us that we're still kind of in bear town. Not much to disseminate from the MACD, not really converging or diverging. Let's go back up to the 1-day chart, and we can see the same thing reaffirmed here as well. We are under 50 on the RSI. So keep that in mind. That could play in here to this ascending pattern here, this pennant pattern, because of the fact that RSI is holding it down. It's getting rejected. It tried to break above 2 days ago and couldn't. That could be the determining factor to help drive the price down further. So what we want to do in that sense is kind of look at a few other support zones and make sure that we wait to see what happens next and don't just buy the dip, right? Because we don't know how long this dip could last. It does look like it's continuing to progress downwards when Bitcoin's progressing upwards. But that's also, keep in mind too, based on the fact that it drove itself really high and then had to retrace because it came up too high too quick. And we look at this here, this percent increase, it was 110% in 2 trading days. That's a lot of movement, right? Anytime you see an increase that high, it's going to come back down. I use this analogy too, so I apologize if you heard this before, but imagine falling down a flight of stairs. It's going to hurt like hell. You're going to probably break some bones. You might have a neck brace. You're going to look funny. You might be stuck in a wheelchair. Who knows, right? That's what happens when you jump up 110% in 1 or 2 trading days to coins, right? It comes right back down and it hurts because it takes a long time to recover. So keep that in mind. That's why we see this long continuation. It probably should have broken out by now, but it didn't because it came up too fast. Now imagine falling down a couple of stairs. It's probably going to hurt. You may not break some bones. You probably scuff your knee or two, but the next day or two, you're going to be fairly back to normal, right? Maybe a week or two, but whatever. Depends on the person. But that's the point here. I'm just trying to drive this home. That is likely what happened, and the reason why we're seeing this continuation to a potential downside because it keeps getting rejected here at this resistance. So let's go ahead and draw a support level. Let's go ahead and see here. Let's go ahead and put this right at about 19,650. So we're kind of in this little channel right now. Obviously, it's been stuck there for a little while. So that's what happens. This could be like a rectangle pattern, but it does more so look like a pennant where the price is coming up, came down, and it'll eventually break out. So again, it may not break out tomorrow, but it does have a lot of signs that it's planning to do so. However, unfortunately, the RSI being under 50 in both scenarios isn't that awesome. I wish it would be still over 50, kind of giving us that confirmation that we're still in bullish sentiment. But right now we're kind of in bear town, like I mentioned, so there's a strong chance we might still continue to see a downward progression. Taking a look here really quick at the 1 hour, let's go ahead and see if we're above or below the cloud. No surprise here, we're under the cloud. Which basically just implies that we should not consider taking a position until the price breaks above the cloud. So what'll likely happen here is this cloud will essentially drop down, kind of follow the same pattern as you see here, right? And then what'll happen is the price will likely continue sideways, and once it breaks above and or just crosses the plane of the cloud, then we want to maybe consider taking an entry point at that point. Okay. So I'd say between now and then, we don't have full-on confirmation. There's not a lot that I see here that's telling us, minus the pattern that we see that's formed. And that's not the only reason to take entry, right? Taking a position based on one potential pattern isn't a good way to trade. A good way to trade is to get a pattern plus 2 or 3 other indicators working in your favor. Right now, we're getting held down by 50 on the RSI. We are bearish divergence essentially overall for all the indicators. And on top of that, we're under the cloud, therefore considered to be a sell signal, not a buy signal, and we want to probably wait for confirmation. So me, I'm a big firm believer on confirmation. I teach this to my patrons all the time. It's really important to make sure that you are waiting for the right signs, because otherwise you're just gambling. So if you want to gamble on this pattern, feel free to do that. That's okay. That's up to you. I wouldn't recommend it, of course, but it could occur, right? Just set some alerts, set some boundaries here, and make sure you pay attention, because the price very well could retrace back down here to support right around 19,000. And what would that be? That would be a 10% drop. So that extra 10% could be a lot more value for you when the price will continue to increase later. Will it? It's hard to say. So honestly, my prediction for this coin is to be careful. It could very well match its all-time high here, about 35,000. But will it do that right away? Probably not. However, if you were just, the kind of person that likes to kind of hope for the best and maybe expect the worst, then I would wait for a little while until we break the cloud on the 1 hour. Furthermore, if you are the kind of person that likes to kind of just say gamble, then this pennant pattern is a pretty good sign. Typically, they break to the upside. I would say more often than not, about 70-80% of the time, you'll see this break upwards instead of downwards. So I think it's an inevitability before it breaks upwards. I just don't know how much lower it's going to go before it gets there. That's my only concern. Okay, so hopefully you found this beneficial and not contradictory. And obviously consider liking and subscribing. More importantly, comment below if you have some insight on this here, of course. Love to hear your thoughts. Let's get engaged. Let's learn as much as we can and continue to grow together. Check out my Patreon community, of course, if you haven't already. I send out signals every single trade that I take. It's an awesome, awesome scenario for everyone involved because I trade about 85%. Again, I'm very careful. I'm a patient trader. You're probably gonna either like that or hate it, and it's okay if you don't like that because you might be better off watching a moon video about somebody talking about how amazing this is going to be. It could be amazing, right? But to be realistic, it's not yet. It's not there yet, but it can, right? Every coin has good potential depending on how it performs. Just keep in mind it got overinflated, it got, deflated now, so to speak, and it's just kind of on the road to recovery. It still has a cast on, right? We need to cut that cast off and let it fly free, and it can't do that until we find the right indicators. I hope that makes sense, and I want to thank you so much for sticking along this long if you hadn't, or if you hadn't planned on it, whatever. Thanks again for joining me here. I really do appreciate your support, regardless of your thoughts. Feel free to comment below. Thank you so much for joining me here. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, Patricia. We'll see you guys later. Take care.